Welcome back to the National Security Hour. I'm your host, Ed Huglin, this evening, and on with me is Dr. Li-Meng Yan as we discuss Chapter 5 of Unrestricted Warfare. So as we've gone through this fascinating discussion from my perspective, because my background, I've focused, as I was talking with Dr. Yan in the break, is that mostly on the old Soviet Union and Russia, Eastern Europe. And so moving my thought process to China, I'm learning a whole lot from Dr. Yan, and I hope our audiences as well. Okay, so listen and learn. So one of the interesting things here is, as we talk with her, is about her understanding and cultural perspective. It's critical for people to understand this cultural perspective. Now, why is that? Because in the cognitive warfare, to effectively communicate, compete, you have to understand the cultural aspects of a society, the regionally specific cultural aspects, but also the semantics, the linguistics, the anthropological aspects, okay, and fully map the information environment to understand the connections and the flow of information. Because in the end, in the cognitive warfare, it's the control, manipulation, and flow of information that is the most critical. And when you take a look at unrestricted warfare and the approach that China is taking to this, it's absolutely fascinating, but yet at the same time terrifying, because they're extremely effective in what they're doing here, in the deception and the leveraging the naivete of our leaders and our military leaders and our national security leaders. So, Dr. Yan, is this a cultural thing in that Americans are so focused on the here and now, the next few days, that we forego this deeper analysis and strategic assessment that I'm seeing from these two colonels?
I think it's culture because America is founded based on Bible, based on Constitution, and the people know the importance, value the human rights, value democracy, and value the freedom. So that's why you won't have this kind of thinking that, oh, we can do it like that, like the beast, right? Just to hurt people, just to feed yourself. Majority of Americans, they cannot even accept this kind of ideas because this is too bloody. I see people they talk about one, for example, one murder, how the parents kill the kid, and then they, oh, how could it happen? Oh, my heart broke like that. This is already shocking for the public. However, back to China, you should know that China has, for thousands of years, the thing they develop is a worship to the power. And it doesn't have this kind of humanity education. It is just whatever things they develop it to serve the emperor's family, to help the emperor to maintain the power. People are just the tools, and people have levels, hierarchy. Lower people, they are, even not seeable. They are just invisible. So their life never cares. And when we talk about the killing, when we talk about sacrifice people, even this can be some positive propaganda in Chinese history or CCP's propaganda. So for example, in the North Korea War, China deployed 100,000 soldiers, pretend they are the civil volunteers, and go to Changjin Lake. And then finally, like American lost 2,000 or 4,000 soldiers, and China lost all the 100,000 soldiers. But China believe they won it because they believe American army fares in front of these dead people, because they're like zombies overnight, all the dead bodies, 100,000 everywhere. So this hits the moral of American army, and this turned the situation of North Korea. So even until now, Xi Jinping put it to the top spirit of CCP's history to educate people. And in this way, you Americans and Chinese totally accept different kind of education. So your thinking is different. I don't think this is a bad side of Americans. I would say no one want to get such education like what CCP gave you. And we are very pity to get it. But somehow now, because you realize CCP is your enemy and CCP want to kill you, overcome your, take over your country. So you have to think about how to understand them better. It's like you're hunting the tigers eating you. You cannot say, hey, let's negotiate, let's play the law.
Yes, no, but you're absolutely right. So what's fascinating here is that in America, people who live here, very few travel outside of America to other countries. Americans, in my opinion, fail to realize they are the most privileged people by birth and citizenship in terms of what we're given at birth here, the freedoms, the Constitution and such. But with that, we also forget to take a look at the real world and how evil it can be, how cruel it can be. And to your point, I've written about this before, is people have to believe what they see. When you see a regime murder 7 million people and not care, when you see a regime recently in I think it was, I can't remember if it was Beijing or wherever, they released the damn floodwaters and flooded tens of thousands of innocents. They didn't care how many people died. It was to save Beijing. It was to save the Beijing from floods. If I got the location right, or if I got it wrong, I'm sorry. But it goes to the level, as Dr. Yen is talking about, of their willingness to sacrifice. When you sacrifice 100,000 people in the North Korean War to make a point, it says something, okay, about their tactics and how they view things, as Dr. Yen's saying. So what she and I are trying to bring to our listeners here is to help you be aware of really what's happening, how dangerous situation is, because I'll go digress from our focus this morning here a little bit for a second, is we have 10,000 to 40,000 military-aged men who've now come into the America from China. Michael Yan, who's also been on this network, has reported on this numerous times. They have set up specific base camps throughout South America to facilitate the ingress of thousands of military-aged Chinese men into the United States. They also then bring them, once they get here, they quickly get them their licenses and other aspects and get them armed with weapons and weapons training. Now think of this. We're purposely letting in, this Manchurian president's purposely letting in this army of Chinese men, probably special operations type of folks. And they're coming in and they're getting arms because we have laws in the country that people in the Second Amendment. But these are illegals, and they're coming here arming themselves, and they're setting up base camps within the United States. But do you hear about this across our news media? Is anybody warning or sending a flag? So this is part of the incredible deception and the use of America's culture and inability to focus on specific things undermine where we're going here. So I'll go back on track here. Before I do that, any comments on that, Dr. Yan?
So this is how China, this is exactly what we are talking about on the chapter 5 of the unrestricted warfare, that you don't know where your enemy is, you don't know who they are, and you have the high technology to have the best arsenal in the world, but you don't know how to use it. The thing is, China hacked your State of Department, hacked the 60,000 email, right? So this is organized by the government hacking operation. Will you claim the war against China? I haven't seen that. And China has spread the COVID-19 from their labs. And yeah, it has problems, but it works very well to kill millions of people. And America's economy going down, a lot of chaos. And did you clear the war? No, you are still arguing. Let's not come from nature. What happened to Fauci, right? And when now they using the so-called anti-CCP poor people cross the border, right? It creates a political correctness, as I explained with you, that these people claim they all want to go to US, pursue freedom, then you welcome them. And then China send this Troy House, right? Send all these
Yes.
kind of military trained people here, and then to operate when China gives them orders. And will you consider it as an invasion and use your military to stop it? I haven't seen that. The thing is, you have the best military and arsenal, but China used unrestricted warfare to suppress you, neutralize you, and your government. I mean, most of people, not only your current government, I see a lot of people are talking about we should talk with China, negotiate. So this is appeasement. So when we talk about whether US should confront China,
Yes.
whether Taiwan is China will occupy Taiwan. I mean, it doesn't matter. You should remember their final goal is to get US. If they can win from Ukraine war, when you stop supporting Ukraine and China and Russia go through Ukraine to the Europe and to isolate you, they can do it. If not, they will go from the east side, from Asian side, from Pacific Ocean side, and then isolate you, weaken you. And all they can directly go to your country to conduct the operation. This is combination of unrestricted warfare.
Yeah, exactly. And so from reading from the book, they say here is that any direction, measure, or person always possibly become a potential threat to the security of a nation. Let me repeat that. Any direction, measure, or person always possibly becomes a potential threat to the security of a nation. It's very difficult for one to be clear about the direction from which the threat is coming. And this is what Dr. Yen is talking about. For a long time, they say both military people and politicians have been accustomed to employing a certain mode of thinking. That is, the major factor posing a threat to national security is military power. And this is what I write about in my book, and Dr. Yen and I talk about. We have an inordinate and an unhealthy focus on kinetics. But what they say, though, is the wars and major incidents which have occurred during the last 20 years, the 20th centuries, have provided us, calm and of composed fashion, proof that the opposite is true. Military threats are already often no longer the major factors affecting national security. So when I take a look at what they're doing with the invasion across our border here, and for our listeners, just think about the Summer of Love riots in 2020 and think how much chaos that caused across the United States. Now think about our military is deployed mostly overseas and we have National Guard here. But let's look at the train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio. It was a chaos. It was a chaos to respond to that. So if you take 10 to 40,000 military men and you disperse them across the United States, and they just start to take off and just start shooting people, blow up things, or sabotage things, this would cause massive chaos throughout the United States. We'd have to declare martial law. And to Dr. Yen's point, from that kind of standpoint, it causes much different impacts to the financial markets and other things. And so then China doesn't have to attack. There are many ways, the point here, there are many ways for them to attack us in these fashions here. And for us to do attribution of them would be almost impossible. But let me touch on one other point before we close out here today, is that they say this effort compromises a new pattern which threatens the political, economic, and military security of our nations. The destruction which they do in these areas are attacked are absolutely not secondary to military wars. And this I found fascinating. In this area, they say we only need to mention the name of lunatics, such as George Soros, Bin Laden, Pablo Escobar. Okay. I found that reference fascinating because here's 25 years ago, they realized that George Soros was doing his own version of unrestricted warfare and having massive impact here. And so they go on to say, yet they can be completely viewed as equal to warfare actions, which they're completely right. So Dr. Yen, what are your thoughts in terms of, we got about 3 minutes left here. This is a fascinating discussion. What are your closing thoughts here in terms of you and your network this constant collaboration you folks are doing to try to disrupt the CCP, and what can Americans and others do or think about to help not only what you're trying to do, but what we're trying to convey here on this program?
The first one, when we talk about, they mentioned Soros and Bin Laden in that section. Did you see that they said all the combination of these people are the kind of they call the whole card. That means CCP will combine all the skills and the experience from these people and using the national power to enforce it. And CCP, so that means CCP is totally beyond the terrorism. And
yes,
when we talk about how we can confront CCP, I mean, me and my friend, Mr. Luder, through his Luder Media, what we have done is to reveal the truth with a lot of help from those very brief Chinese sources in China. And what we started from COVID-19 truth, which makes CCP feel really nervous and has to change their tactics and has to move around, and that will give us more evidence to show, oh yeah, this is their, I mean, they have done this, this is the evidence, right? So altogether, we have developed our ways because we understand CCP, we understand the culture, and plus we have the real information inside. We know how to nail it. I mean, we can spread truth. We let people to know what really happened in China. And
yes,
what CCP can do is they are actually the paper tiger. They cannot compete with America and other Western countries in the high technology level. So what their best weapon is deception. All the thing is lying. And when you reveal it, it's just like you remove the cockroach, the nest.
yes,
The cockroaches are very nervous bred, and they cannot harm you after that, right? So
yes.
remove their disguise to show their true color. That is the most powerful thing. However, how could you do that? You have to remove the misinformation. You have to understand how they do the cognitive interference to manipulate you. And that's why we need to learn the cognitive warfare and learn how CCP do that. And then you can find out the countermeasures.
So Dr. Yen, it's really always a pleasure dealing with you here on these subjects here. And for our listeners who don't really understand, Dr. Yen fled and continues to hide to protect her life. And if you take a look at her website and the voice of Dr. Yen, you'll see there's a number of court cases, lawfare that China undertook to try to find her and still to take her out. So she's risking her life bringing you this insights. So Dr. Yen, it's always an incredible, interesting, and insightful time talking with you and discussing China's unrestricted warfare. I'm here in the National Security Hour to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. I will go outside of the fog of the daily chaos to give you a strategic perspective on national security and speak truth to power, the power of we the people, so we together can best ensure the resilience and security of our republic. Thanks for joining us on the mission. The National Security Hour is the tip of the spear in the epic battle to defend the United States of America.